Minuteman Vocational Technical High School. So I just wanted to say a few words before Nikki made her presentation. We appreciate Bolton's support for the school. Bolton's traditionally been just a big supporter of vocational education and Minuteman in general. I do currently have a junior at the school who's in the animal science program, so I've been able to see like firsthand, how the school operates. Currently, we've got 16 majors that the students can choose from. They alternate between an academic week and a vocational week, and then generally in their junior second half of the junior year and senior year, they can begin working in a co-op in their field of study. So when the students graduate, they graduate with certifications, which the school pays for their exams and their licensures. So many of these students have the option of either working in their field that they've chosen or entering the job force or continuing their education. So it's really and just an incredible program, which gives students lots of options. And it's just a way of learning that works really well for many students. Having said that, I'd like to introduce Nikki Andrade. She is our business manager. Our interim superintendent, Kevin Mahoney, he's actually presenting tonight at a different member town. So Nikki's going to do the presentation for us tonight. And I'll be happy to answer any of your questions, as Nikki will also. Thank you.
All right, great.
All right, so if it's okay with everybody, I will share my screen. I do believe we shared it in advance of this meeting too, so I don't know if you have a copy of it. Just turn those subtitles off. Perfect. So I'll try to scoot rather quickly through this presentation. I know you were just at a rather lengthy one with Nashoba, but this is our FY25 superintendent recommended budget. This is a picture of our school. And before we get into the numbers, we really just think about the budget in reflection with what our priorities are. So, our budget priorities reflect our values, which is our students and our staff. And I always like to show a couple pictures of the students and what they're doing at Minuteman. This slide particularly highlights Bolton and the Bolton students that we have. So last year we graduated 3 Bolton students, with 2 going to UMass and Amherst and UMass Lowell, 1 directly into the workforce. 36 students currently in all 16 different Minuteman program majors, which is great. 6 of the students are out on co-op, 5 seniors and 1 junior. And we have an athletic achievement from one of your students as well, placing 3rd place in the 100 fly CAC championship for swim. So this is a picture of one of the students from Bolton at the 95th National FFA Convention as well. And here is the Bolton preliminary assessment. We did present this to the school committee, who approved it at the end of January. So what it's looking like is just about 1.3 million with the excluded debt. Overall, our total operating and capital budget recommendation is just under 4%, coming in at about 31.5 million. Our operating portion of the budget comes in just 2.99% over the prior year. Our capital request recommendation, which is part of our capital stabilization, leases, and athletic fields, has quite a big jump, and I'll explain that later in the presentation. And our building project debt, in conjunction with our amortization schedules, is just about 1.4% above last year. Overall, our assessment to member towns is only up 0.2% overall. However, as you'll see through the presentation, our budget is really based strongly on the 4-year rolling average of the students enrolled for the operating and capital. So different towns will see different increases in their assessment based on the number of students that are enrolled at Minuteman. Some of our budget drivers, our collective bargaining agreement, our CBA with our teachers was at 3.5%. We do have a reduction of 2 FTEs, our assistant director of CTE, the career and technical education, as well as a human resource position that is being kind of overseen by our director of operations that was newly hired in October. So with those 2 reductions, we are proposing bringing back some grant funded positions that were cut during COVID that are currently being funded with our ESSER or our Perkins grants. So we're proposing a library aide, a health tech aide, and a co-op coordinator. If you net out the decrease in the reduction of the 2 FTEs plus the 3 new FTEs coming from the grant funded positions, it is a net decrease of 35,000. So just wanted to note that there. We, in addition, are proposing the continued funding of a foreign language teacher due to increased enrollment in the foreign languages, and an athletic trainer to help with the athletic program to support training and attend all of the games for MIA regulations. We are estimating a 5% consumer price index increase, as well as proposing an additional day for our bus transportation. This will help the students be able to engage in more after-school activities. As far as utilities, we're actually projecting a decrease. We worked with our project manager as far as utilities go, and based on actually being in the building for a full year without COVID, being in the new building, we're seeing some price savings. And our health insurance is actually level funded this year. We had lower than anticipated premiums from last year's budget that are actually able to hold an increase in this year's budget. Lastly, we are investing in cybersecurity, as that's quite a big risk these days, and certainly something that we've assessed from an outside consultant and determined it would be beneficial for Minuteman. Our capital stabilization fund, we are proposing funding $850,000. It's a $350,000 increase from the prior year, and that's that big increase in the capital line that you had mentioned before. I have more details in a slide, but with that proposed funding, we will have our balance at about just over $3 million. And we really want to build up this fund to maintain the potential use of the campus and protect against future assessment increases. So in particular, we have a building in mind, our East building, and there'll be additional slide on that where I'll dive a little deeper into what we're thinking as far as that building. Our school was built without our animal science program as part of the blueprint. So we're currently looking for a permanent space for the labs. And again, we'll go into further detail on that slide. Additional budget driver is our debt service. This was something that's actually decreasing. We are not going to be assessing our athletic field debt to our member towns. This is the first year we had a beginning balance in our revolving account from our facilities rentals, and we're actually able to offset that cost. And we will no longer be assessing it to our member towns. And you'll see that in our revenue plan. And our other post-employment benefits, our OPEB, our contribution is in line with our OPEB study committee. The contribution this year is $315,000 on top of the currently active employees, retirees. So just a little bit more about Minuteman. A major factor impacting our operating budget is our enrollment. And with the plan for the new school building came plans with increasing the in-district student enrollment. And you'll see here our increase in our member towns, our red line, and the decrease in our non-member towns. So, you know, as the increasing enrollment continues for our member towns, the non-member towns are matriculating out. And our enrollment by town here, you'll see Bolton's students for each year, 8 in our freshman class, 9 in our sophomore class, 13 in our junior class, and 6 in our senior class, with a total of 36. So as we talked about that slide with the enrollment shifting, our out of district enrollment is also having a financial impact. So the out of district tuition and the out of district capital fee, that revenue that we used to collect from those out of district students attending, is continuing to decrease. And if this trend continues in the next 2 years, we will see, you know, the entire assessments being to our member towns. So we wanted to show in particular here what that's looking like. Our tuition offset this year, just over 800,000. We're projecting next year with a decrease in students, it'll go down to 373,000, and the year after 53,000. Then our out of district capital fee, 277,000 this year. Next year we're projecting 110,000, in the year after about 15,000. So we're just trying to, you know, get ahead and making our member towns aware that, you know, this offset, you know, will not continue in future years, as it's not something we'll be collecting. So overall, our preliminary assessments, comparative year to year, Bolton, again, the 1,325,000 up from, you know, 1.2 million last year. That percent increase is 10.48%. But I think, you know, an important factor is the 4-year rolling average. Bolton's enrollment has significantly increased over the past years, and you're seeing a 30% increase in students. So, you know, while we are seeing, you know, the 10% for Bolton, you know, what we have seen in the past as far as historical assessment trends is that, you know, those 4-year rolling average of enrollment percents are much more in line with the total assessment and the total increase, because that's how we build our budget, and that's what it's based on. So this year you will see, although the 4-year rolling average is 30%, because of our modest budget, we are only seeing a increase for Bolton's total assessment of the 10%. And again, just kind of, you know, recircling back on, you know, member town assessment increase, the total of 0.82% is lower than typical, you know, for a number of reasons. One is our Chapter 70 state aid, and I'll go over that in the next slide. But we did receive more than expected this year than was estimated based on the governor's budget. Our out of district tuition and capital fee, as we noted, is declining, and it will continue over the next few years. And the athletic field debt assessment, this will be the first year that, you know, we're no longer offsetting member town assessments. So our Chapter 70 discussion, you know, just kind of quickly updating you. We did an estimate based on, you know, a calculation, but when the governor's budget was released closer to March this year, instead of when we approved our budget in January, it was significantly higher. So we are seeing an increase of about $780,000 this year. And this is what the impact would be to the member towns. We met with all of the town managers from all the different member towns, and we proposed an alternative proposal for this funding. We currently still have to close out our MSBA project, and we are scheduled to be on the closeout at the end of October currently. So we currently have an outstanding ban of $2.8 million. Our estimated reimbursement from MSBA in October is about 2.2 million. So the balance to be financed is about 565,000. Instead of what we've proposed is instead of increasing assessments each year by principal and interest, that we use the excess from our Chapter 70 that we've received this year to pay down the principal and the interest. So that would be about 615,000, and it would result in savings of 145,000 in interest over the next 5 years. So again, why we're mentioning it too, is that you'll see probably in the upcoming April meeting that we'll most likely be proposing a budget adjustment. It won't increase member town assessments, but we would propose paying off this debt before June 30th with the excess funding before it rolls into our E&D fund. And just to kind of wrap things up, our East building that we talked about and why we're trying to get our capital stabilization up to about 3 million is we currently have an unoccupied building on campus. We've got in estimates that it's about 7 million to renovate, 6,000 square feet. So we're seeking a partnership for the animal science clinic again. Before we had a similar idea, but it fell through. It wasn't something that saw its case. So we are, again, we put out an RFI, a request for information, to get more information to see if there's any partners interested. The reason is because, as I mentioned, there's just not enough space in the main building for our animal science program. So we actually moved that program to a temporary space adjacent to the building on campus. And they are working out of a temporary space. But the idea for this East building would be to really partner and have it be a vet clinic that someone ran, so then the students could get really hands-on experience. There's also possible state grant funding. They match, I believe, up to one to every $3. So it's not necessarily to increase, capacity or seats, but really to just find a permanent house for our animal science program. In the past, we've talked about increasing, seats up to 800. Right now, the school committee reviewed that, and we are reducing the amount of students that we're accepting to be within what the school currently has available. So just to kind of wrap things up again, our operating budget, 2.99%. Our capital equipment lease and athletic fields line, that increase is due to our capital stabilization. Our debt service, just based on those amortization schedules, to get us at a total operating and capital budget of just below 4%. Again, we see here our Chapter 70 aid. It looks substantial increase. However, because we received so much more in FY24, it's really more level funded. We have an estimate for our Chapter 71 transportation reimbursement. Our tuition and capital fee we've talked about. We are funding our excess and deficiency to offset member assessments by 615,000. And you'll see here the facilities revolving account. This is the first year we are putting money towards it, so the member towns will not be assessed that total. And that brings us to 0.82 overall increase in our member town assessments. So just to kind of wrap things up, these are our assessment components: our minimum required contribution, our transportation budget. Our ESCO lease is it's an energy saving lease on our old building. And this is the last year that we will have that assessment in there. Our capital line, again, increased because of the capital stabilization. And our assessments over minimum contribution has decreased. So again, our total assessment 0.82. and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Nikki. I have a quick question. Can you go to your the enrollment slide that shows the town enrollments over the last few years?
This
Yes, that one right there. Yep.
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Actually, maybe the next one. It's broken down by town.
Yep.
Right, this one. So if you can just remind me when the average, the 4-year running average is calculated, it's like based on enrollment of in the prior year or something, because we went from, I think you said we went from an average of 20 to an average of 27.
Correct. Yeah. So this is dependent on the last 4 years. And I actually it might be helpful. I put together kind of a little projection slide of what your 4-year rolling average will be in the future. And that might be helpful to look at here. So what you'll see here is your actual enrollment count and then the 4-year rolling average underneath. So this year in particular, your 4-year rolling average is the 4 years from 23, 22, 21, and 20. While your 4-year rolling average last year is from 22, 21, 20, and 19. So you'll see here the big jump is that in 2019 you had 11 students, but in 2023 you had 36
Right.
students. So when you when you take those you had historically been only sending 10 to 15 students, you'll see kind of a really big jump here. And what I was projecting out was based on your slot allocation. So you have 14 slots based on the regional agreement. And currently there were actually exactly 14 that applied for next year. So if you were to fill your slots for the upcoming years, you'll see not as big of an increase, and it will, starts to level out a little bit more. The slot allocation is, just a projection. It isn't necessarily something that, is a limit. It's something that if you have that many students, they can certainly attend. But if you don't get that many students, we'd only do the calculation based on the number, that attended. And if some other towns didn't have as many slots and you had more Bolton students, it could be something where you'd end up having more slots. So
Great, thank you. Yep, that's very helpful.
Yeah. So, I think I know it's certainly been hard for Bolton with the increases. It is directly related to the number of students that are going to Minuteman and, being able to partake in the CTE education. So, I think FY26 will still be a pretty high year based on, the enrollment count of 2020 falling off. And then it will, it won't be as drastic, I think.
Right.
So I hope that helps.
Right. Great. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions for Nikki or Erica? Okay. So are these numbers final?
These are approved by our school committee. They won't be final until all the towns vote at town meetings.
Well, right, but your assessment to us, these are the final numbers that we can.
Yes, this is what we are recommending.
Okay. And Ninotchka, this is an assessment to us, right? So we don't really have a whole lot of say in the matter.
Correct.
Okay,
So
so,
we do need at least 2/3 of the towns to vote yes for us to adopt the budget.
right, yep. Okay, so, Ninotchka, we can vote on this then?
Yeah, you can.
Because it won't change. Okay, so let's see. Nikki, if you can stop sharing, I will share our budget spreadsheet. Okay, so here's our budget spreadsheet, and this is the same number that that Nikki presented in the briefing, right? Nikki, is that
That is correct.
right? Okay. All right. Is there any other discussion from the advisory committee, or is there a motion to approve the Minuteman assessment for 1.3 million?
I move we approve the Minuteman assessment for 1.3 million.
I second that.
Great. And just to be specific, I know I said 1.3 million. It's 1,325,147. All right. All in favor? Sorry, I'll do a roll call. Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Omid,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right, great. Nikki and Erica, thank you very much for the presentation and for the discussion.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right,
Yes, we
great.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay,
If
have
you
a
need
good night.
anything further, let us know.
Okay, great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Bob, so this will go to the town meeting, just like the Neshoba district will.
Right.
And for vote, so, yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So on our agenda, we also have some discussion on the Neshoba presentation and assessment that we just heard about. We obviously can't vote on it. Those numbers aren't final yet. But did anyone have any thoughts or discussion they want to mention?
It was good to hear they think they can cover a lot of it, if not all. That's great.
Right, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic that they can get the number down even further because, you know, as I mentioned, they're not leaving us a lot of room to maneuver.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, good. Well, we will wait and hear what the final numbers are in a few weeks, and then at that point, we'll vote on that. And actually, let me just real quick share what we have in the spreadsheet right now, just to give everyone a sense of sort of what we're looking at. Okay, so
Bob, I've made a few adjustments to the spreadsheet that I'll upload to Viewpoint tomorrow. Just some little,
okay,
it's not much huge.
okay. Okay, and you had in a placeholder here, you had 4%.
Yeah, I actually changed, I increased that to 4.22.
Okay. And what we saw tonight was about
4.77.
4.77. Right, okay, which is that 0.5% between your 4.22 and 4.7, that's about $90,000.
So, you know, wishful thinking, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, all right, we'll see if they can get it down there. Okay, the one item we do have to vote on tonight is there was a minor adjustment to something we voted on a couple weeks ago. It was the planning board wages. 175. For the planning conservation assistant, there was actually a $59
That's right.
minor discrepancy. So this requested amount actually had to be increased by $59. So I think we should re-vote on this. Anyone want any further details or have any questions? If not, is there a motion to reapprove the planning board budget for 137,959?
I move we reapprove the planning board budget for 137,959.
I second that.
Okay, roll call. Bill,
Aye.
Omid,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right, excellent. All right, no transfer requests. I think that's it for our agenda. Does anyone have anything else? Omid, go ahead.
This is just a suggestion. You guys can tell me yes or no, or what are you thinking? In regard to the school committee, Neshoba, can we schedule like a meeting between like the town administrator, like select committee and us, or maybe if, to see what are the options are, or like the school committee, or because of like the impact it's gonna have on the town, especially with the building and everything else? Or you think that's all resolved and stuff? We're just gonna leave it to the town discussion and the town vote?
Well, we could have a meeting. I think that the situation we're in, and someone correct me if I'm incorrect, but I think the situation we're in is that this assessment gets rolled into the town budget that gets voted on in one article on the warrant, and it's very difficult to separate the school assessment from the rest of the town budget.
Yeah, no, I understand that part. I'm saying like if we can have a meeting with the town, select and the admin to just review it or see if there's any negotiation between and then they can go talk to the school committee or whatever if there's any other issues that they can see or concern. Like I feel like this might requires a little more closer look from us before the town, because like with the high raise and everything else, I feel like the town, we own the town to look a little more closer. So when it comes to the town meeting, like we have some answers and something to bring to it, because not a lot of people are going to be happy about it. And I understand that this all is one article that's getting voted on. So if it doesn't get approved and another town gets it, then like it shuts down the whole town, except emergency things. I understand it, and they have to rework it, and everything has to wait on it. That's why I was bringing it up. Like if we want to put that little extra effort first within ourselves and then within the school committee and the school board, and see if any negotiation is needed or not, or recommended. That's all I was going with it.
Right. So I mean, as you're aware, we don't have a role in negotiating the school budget. We did have a discussion with our school committee reps a few weeks ago.
Yep. Now I understand that. That's why I was gonna say like we can talk to our select. We're not negotiating anything. We can see like what we are, like where the town is, what impact it will have on the town, because obviously like he has to adjust other things if it gets and again bring it up to the school committee through the select and the town, whatever is decided. That the school committee has the option to work with the school district to do anything if the town is behind it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we're negotiating. We can say like we can give some we can talk to the select and the town admin to figure something out, look at all the options, and then they can go to the school committee. Like we're cut out of it at that point. It's on them to contact the school committee. But again, it's all on everyone if they want to do that or not.
Right, I guess I'm not clear on what you're suggesting, that this whole series of meetings that we've been having is looking at the impacts of all these budget numbers on the town. We do have a discussion with Don Lowe at, I think at our next meeting. We can certainly bring up the concerns there. I'm not sure a separate meeting.
Well,
Provides-
my thing is that like nothing is so like today's meeting and everything, like nothing was internally so okay, for example, like so when the school committee comes and it's higher than what we expected and all the other stuff, right? What are we gonna do as a town to make sure we can meet that? Because we can't just raise all the taxes. There's a certain level we can do. What are we gonna do to accommodate that? Because they can tell us their number and stuff. And as we saw with the thing today, so like, are we gonna go back to the drawing board and try to reduce reduction somewhere else and things like that? That's where I'm going with it.
Right, yeah, absolutely. We're gonna talk with Don Lowe in a couple of weeks. That'll be part of the discussion, and we're gonna talk about his thoughts on what capital requests can be covered and what can't, and what some of the impacts are. So we'll absolutely discuss that. You know, if you have thoughts as we go along on other ways that we can reduce the impacts,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I
So-
don't have to. That's why I want to hear from like Don or them or them, because I know it's gonna have impact on other areas of the town. So,
Right.
and I feel like we this is something that it's not like, hey, yes, we're gonna approve $45 going up higher, or just like the Minuteman or something wasn't that impacting as much, where that the Neshoba has a huge impact on the taxes and everything else.
Right.
And on top of that, the town voted for the new building and everything. So everyone's pretty pissed off about all the raises. So I feel like to reduce that and give the town the thing that we are doing everything we can, at least.
Right. Okay, it
But
looks like
if-
others have some thoughts here. Okay, Bob Sikansky had his hand up first.
Yeah, I had my hand up primarily to ask if you could get a copy of the presentation we just saw from Minuteman and distribute it, because it was very good. And I would just like to have that going forward. So if you could get a copy of that, that would be really helpful. Let me go on to say a couple things about OMID's questions. One is, I think, and the school district made a very wise choice in separating this out, in that the operating budget and the debt are different. There's nothing the school district can do about the debt, and there's nothing the town can do about the debt. They're financially obligated to pay that debt. The way that money's allocated is according to the regional agreement. The town of Bolton voted to authorize that debt. So that debt is, there's nothing to negotiate there. The school district can't negotiate and we can't negotiate. As far as the operational budget goes, the warrant has to be closed by the end of March, and we're not even going to get the final numbers until the second week of March. So there's not a lot of time to negotiate, particularly if you want to recognize and acknowledge the open meeting laws. What the advisory committee can do, as can the select board, is they could advise, if they don't like the budget and they don't think there's enough work put into it, they can recommend that the town vote against it. And you know, just be able to justify making that kind of recommendation. They're coming very close. They're already very close to the number we told them we could live with, which was the 4%. And if they get there, I think it's going to be a difficult time to say, well, we've decided to move the goalposts here. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And I'll just mention also that we were very clear with our school committee reps a couple weeks ago of what we were looking at budget wise and what numbers we would like them to hit. And the numbers have come down since then. You know, I don't know if it's a result of any of those discussions or it's just a happy coincidence, but things have moved in the right direction. So that's good to see.
You know, at a recent meeting, Mike Koresh made a point of referring to your meeting and telling the superintendent that he wanted to see the assessment at Bolton come in at 4%. So he's conveying the message. That's an unusual thing for a school committee person to do. And Mike Koresh did that. So I think the joint meeting you had was at least, it was effective in that regard anyway.
That's great to hear. Don, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wanted to echo Bob and the two Bobs comments, and I think we still got some numbers have not finished up, and we really, while that your suggestion for a meeting may be appropriate, until all the numbers settle down, I think we just got to wait or try to move things along. Obviously, the school is a big piece of it. I think we still have, don't we still have something, was it the transfer station? We've never finished. And obviously
We still have health insurance.
Yeah, so there's a lot of loose ends still to go, unfortunately. So until those all end, we really can't do too much. Thank you, Nanatika, too, by the way. That's it for me.
Thank you. Craig, you had your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
I did, but it's mostly covered. It wasn't clear if Omid was referring to the rather significant increase in debt and that maybe he was thinking that we'd somehow absorb $50 million in debt into our current budget somehow, when I think we're hopefully planning to do a Proposition 2.5 override to cover that.
Yes, so that portion of the debt is debt excluded. So tomorrow I'll add that as a revenue source and then put it as an expenditure. So it's a wash as far as our operating budget is concerned.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I wanted to make it clear to Omid that we weren't on the hook for that, or at least we weren't going to try to squeeze that into the current budget.
And them doing the debt in pieces, which is not what they presented at the meeting, could hopefully, fingers crossed, have positive impact.
Yep. Good. Okay. Other comments or questions or anything? Let me make one. Go ahead, Craig.
There is something in the chat I haven't looked at.
Right. Jenny just mentioned that she sent the presentation out.
Right.
So excellent. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, a public service announcement. We are not going to meet next week. We're taking next week off due to a couple of conflicts, so our next meeting will be on the 12th of March. Okay, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, great. Thanks, everyone, and thanks for hanging in there for